Okay. Let's see. Chat. Hey there, guys. We'll get started in here just a minute. Just working out a few technical issues. Let's see here. Good, good, good. Okay, so that's working. Hey guys, we'll get started in a minute. I'm just waiting for Trent to get on, double checking that it's all working right. Uh, okay. Let's see. Messenger.
Hi, Andy.
Oh, hey. Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I can't hear you, so give me a second. I'm checking to make sure all my wires are connected.
Got it.
Hello?
Hello?
Now I can hear you. Sounds good.
Okay, we're good. Thank goodness. All right. For anyone who's been patiently waiting, sorry about the technical difficulties. My computer's power cord literally just went dead the minute I got on to start the broadcast. So I'm on my son's computer now, but all's good. Oh, all right. Let's see. So we got reviews in there, all good. I think. Yes. All right. So we just gonna get this going, Trent, since we're running a little late.
Sure.
Just the two of us, maybe knock it out a little earlier. We'll see. I don't know.
Sure.
Now we only have one long-winded person, which is me. No denials. All right.
Well, when all three of my fellow co-hosts are on, I usually keep my words minimal to keep it under 3.5 hours.
Yeah. So we don't go full secret call.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's get going. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly podcast. We are a group of gamers in Central Iowa. Today, we are going to basically start off by reviewing a game or two that we've been enjoying. We'll talk about our topic today, the topic being difficult themes, and we'll kind of get into a little bit about what that is when we get there. We'll hype some games we're looking forward to playing as we kind of finish out and out the door. Before we get into things, I'd like to tell you to take a look at our cardboard cohorts. These are people working together in kind of the fun aspects of board game media. Our cardboard cohorts are Bridge City Board Gamers. Check them out for some kind of different looks into different games in what they do. Also, take a look at Punchboard Media, which we are a proud member of. If you go to their website, you'll pretty much find something there you'll be interested in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off with reviews today. Trent, why don't you go ahead and start us off on that?
Okay, then my review is a game called Metro X. Metro X is I would say it's in the roll and write genre, except it's more like roll and look at a card and make a decision. So there's actually no rolling. It's more of a roll and card flip, closer to Welcome to, for example. Designed by Hisashi Hayashi, who's designed a bunch of different games. Probably my favorite of which is Yokohama. So in Metro X, you have a metro map of some metro system. In some city, there's different pads that work fine with this game. I have the Tokyo and Osaka ones, which came in the box. There's supposedly quite a few others. I haven't never actually played them. I'm mostly just familiar with the Tokyo and Osaka maps, but they both work the same. So they depict a rather complex subway system map. And on this map is a whole ton of squares. There's squares along each individual line, and there's lots of squares where the lines intersect, as it would be in a typical subway map. And so you have the sheet that has probably 70 or 80 squares on it connected by lines. And like I said, there's intersections of these lines, and then there's long sections where they're running out by themselves and they intersect again. It looks like a subway map. You get the idea. And then at the start of each of these lines, there's 2 to 3 boxes, and then a couple of numbers that indicate score. So what you do during this game is, it's a lot like if you played Welcome to the game. The flow of the game will feel very familiar. You flip over a card. It has all the cards on it have on them are numbers. A few of them will have numbers inside of circles. A few of them will have stars. And then there's 1 or 2 that are just complete wild cards. So the way a normal number one works is, if it just has a number on it, you go to the leftmost unfilled block on a particular line. So you start where it starts and you follow along. And when you get to the first box that doesn't have anything in it, you put a 0. and and then along that line you keep putting in zeros as far along as the number is until you run into another zero. This is important. I'll get back to that. So let's say you flipped over a 4 and you choose a line, you put in 3 zeros and you're about to put in your 4th, but that box already has a 0 in it, you get bupkis. You don't get to put in that 4th 0, you're done. If you have a number inside of a circle, though, you can go ahead and skip it. So if you have a 3 inside of a circle and you put in a 0 down and then the next one has a 0 already or a number already in it, you can skip it and keep going along that line. It just fills in the 3 leftmost empty boxes. The star one's where the game actually starts to have some interesting decisions. The star one is when you choose any line, the leftmost available box on it, and then you're trying to aim for ones that have intersections. So there's 3 or 4 lines going through the same box, or 5, or however many the most you can get is, and you write a number in that box equal to double the number of lines going through it. So you just count the number of lines going in and out of it and write that number in the box. Straightforward enough, pretty easy. And so what's the difficulty with this game? It's really all you do until everybody has used a certain number of cards on each line that's depicted on the sheet, and then you're done. So what's interesting about this game? Why are you doing this? The interesting part is how all the lines intersect. And the designer had to spend a lot of time thinking this through because it's a really, really good little puzzle. So let's say you're doing the Tokyo map and you're going, you're finding lots of O's in the Tokyo line. You sure can, because you can choose any line you want to fill them up. That's great. You got pretty far along the Tokyo line. Everything's wonderful. So now you're want to fill in another line to get some more points for another line, because you get points in this game for finishing a line from beginning to end. And maybe you've done that with the Tokyo line. You got a bunch of points. Hooray. Now you moved on to another line. The problem is that all the other lines intersect somewhere with the Tokyo line. So you're finding that you're end up wasting a lot of numbers if you're just going along with that one. So maybe on space 4 is where it intersects with the Tokyo line, but the card that just got flipped over is a 5. Well, you're going to be wasting 2 of your markings on your map, and that's bad. That means you're not going to be able to complete as many lines. You're not going to be able to get as many points. So you have to figure out somewhere else to put it. Where's the awesome place to put it? You also know that there's going to be cards coming up eventually in the deck that are going to get you points for big intersections that have a lot of lines going through it. You don't want to put a 0 there. You want to wait until the star card comes up so you can put like a 10 there, because that's going to be end-game points. So you're kind of waiting around for that. You're trying to decide whether or not you're willing to waste this card with the 4 on it and only put 2 zeros in, or whether you're just going to say, forget it, I'm going to go through this intersection now so maybe I can complete some lines. You're constantly making decisions like that. And it comes out feeling kind of like a puzzle, because it is. There's a little bit of, you can start to feel it if you play it enough, the logic puzzle that's going on in the background of this. It's kind of like doing one of those logic games that you maybe did when you were in school, where it's like, Betty and Carla have green shirts but not blue pants. Yeah, those. It has a little of that going on it, and you start to feel it after playing this a couple times. I mean, initially you don't feel that, but the way the grids are set up, it actually is there, and it starts to come out. You start to have the logic through which line am I going to put this in? Because there usually, I think, is a best place to put it, but you don't see it a lot of the times, because the place that might be the spot where it's obviously you put down and it has the most zeros that you can fill in, which is good usually, isn't always the right spot to put it. And you end up seeing why that is 2 or 3 turns later when a much better card flips up. Or you just simply see it later and like, oh, I should have done that because of this, this, and this. I think it's probably the most clever and thinky roll and write I've played yet in the recent boom of roll and writes, which is, I mean, a lot of them have been very light that I played, some of them extremely light. So I'm not saying this was really heavy. I'm just saying I felt like I had the most thinking through of what I needed to do with this one of any of the ones I played. And so if I'm going to play a roll and write right now, this is probably really near the top of the list. Most of the ones I have played in the recent run of roll and writes that have been very popular, I haven't really liked. I like Welcome to okay, it's fine. I'm really struggling to point to other ones I really liked. But this one I actually do like quite a bit. I think it's pretty good because you can feel the puzzle going on with it each time. So it's kind of hard to find. I'm not sure it's had a full English printing. The one I have is both Japanese and English. And I don't know that it was ever actually published in America, but it should be, someone should pick this up. So that one is called Metro X. If you can find it anywhere, that'd be well worth picking up. I know that supposedly the booth at Gen Con, if you're going to Gen Con, that has all the Japanese stuff at it, will have copies of this at Gen Con. So if you're going to Gen Con, you're interested, that may be a place to look for it. And you'll know what booth that is if you walk through the dealer hall, because you can't miss it because it's very loud and bright. Anyway, that game is Metro X. I give it a pretty good thumbs up. I mean, it's not the best game I've ever played, but if you're looking for a roll and write that actually has things to think about, it would get a thumbs up for me.
Nice. So, quick question related to that game, because my wife really likes those kinds of logic puzzles. Like saying, the ones where it's like, this person is older than this person or whatever it is. So would this be something maybe a little bit more up her alley?
I mean, it's not that strictly laid out, but there's a lot of that in there, and you start to feel it the more you play it.
Okay.
I would say the first couple of games of it, I didn't know what to make of it after about 2 plays. I'll be honest with you. I feel like these cards are coming up at random, and I don't really know why I'm getting the score. I'm just kind of filling in zeros. And then all of a sudden, at some point, like third or fourth time I was playing it, kind of like I started to click with me. Like there's a logic to how to put these numbers in here. And the first full game I played after that, my score like tripled. So that should tell you something right there. When I started to get what was going on, my score jumped. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know whether it'll be exactly what she likes, but it's pretty good. And if you can find it, it's a small box game. It'll be like $15 or $20 if you can find it. That's the trick, is if you can find it.
Yeah, the finding, it's the issue.
Uh-huh.
Nice. Cool. I'll have to maybe check that one out. Okay, so next we're going to go to my review, and I'm going to review Pipelines, which is doing pretty darn well from what I see. I think it's by Capstone Games, and I think, Clay, they're linked something where it was like #1 for the Origins hotness or something like that. Like it really did well. So Pipelines is the newest heavy game, kind of released by Capstone Games, one of their newest ones. It's a very planning heavy game. So basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to take different kinds of oil and you're going to construct pipe networks. And these pipe networks are kind of like, what they remind me of is like puzzles you might have done online in like casual games where they have different pipes and you have to connect them up properly. It kind of feels like that. So you're building a length of pipe, and with so many lengths, you can like refine oil. So you can move it from crude oil to, minor refined or medium or heavily refined oil. You're doing this in an attempt to fulfill certain contracts. So the contracts will come up, and basically once you take them, they will want a certain color and quality of oil, and you need to make sure to get that fulfilled each year. You will be paid money for it, and things along those lines. There'll be markets that you can use to buy oil, as well as sell oil to. If you go to other markets, there's upgrades that give you like really nice bonuses. The bonuses are really cool because you look at them, and if you think of like a very economic Euro kind of game, when you look at these bonuses, like they all kind of seem broken, but they're all kind of equally broken. So it sort of works. No matter which one you take, they all give really, really nice bonuses. And so it's really kind of up to you, like when you get them, how you get them, and whatnot. You can take loans if you need more money, although that's going to give you these things called penalty cubes, which you're going to have to pay back. All kinds of different things like that. It'd take a while to actually go through all of it. But basically the gist of this game is you're going to get oil. You're going to build up your network of pipes. You can automate it with machines or run it manually. That's going to basically refine the oil into higher grades, which you're going to use to fulfill either contracts or orders. Now, to kind of go over what I think is kind of important to know about this game, and that is the way it feels and what you're going to be doing in it. This game is a super heavy planning game. your capabilities and how well you pull off what you're doing is going to come down to how well your plan comes together. There is, for me, just enough interaction to be interesting in the sense that, there's only so many spots you can buy from. It gets more expensive as you go. So if somebody beats you there, your oil might cost you more, or you might only be able to sell it for less. On the other hand, if you wait too long to go get upgrades, maybe those are all used up for the round. You can't get any upgrades, so there's that. So it's kind of a what did they call it? I heard someone say similar to Agricola. It's not a take that, but it's a I'll take that before you get to it. And that's kind of, at least for me, the minimum level of interaction that I need to be interested in a game. Other than that, like I said, it can be a very heavy planning game. So it's very thinky. Every time I've played it, my brain kind of like melts for a minute as I slowly work out how I'm going to build my pipe networks. The first time you play this, just as being a forewarned, you're probably going to get crushed by an experienced player. Just kind of know that going into it. Now, my other thoughts with this one, I think, are it's going to be really prone to analysis paralysis, or AP. If you have someone who is a problem with AP already, this may not be the game to introduce them to. Once everyone knows what they're doing, the game actually flows pretty quickly, but there can be some downtime as people sort of puzzle out their pipe networks. And when I've played it, kind of what we do is, if you're just figuring out how to connect your pipes together, and what you're doing really won't affect the next person. We just kind of say, go do your turn. I'm fitting pipes. This can take me a bit. And that kind of works out that way. Okay. I know BGG's, I think, puts this at a lower player count. I think they said it's preferred 2 or 3. I've played it at 4 and it works okay. But if you had 4 new players all at once, that might get a little rough. Like I said, if any of them are prone to AP. The other thing I've seen people say is it feels too short. And to some extent, I could agree with that. Like, you do not get very many actions in this game, and each action has to be well thought out and used in the most efficient way, because you don't get any actions that you can just throw away. Everything's critical. So that can be kind of rough, and I can see where people have said that. In fact, I saw one comment a person said is, for crying out loud, it takes, almost longer to teach this game than it does to play this game. That's not entirely true. I can kind of see where they're coming with on that one. Other than that, the game looks gorgeous. I believe Ian O'Toole did the artwork on this one too, for what artwork there is. It's very much an economic sort of engine building kind of game. Functionality is definitely more important here than form. And I think all of that works really, really well together. I know I've seen a lot of buzz on this where people saying this is going to be tough to top for their game of the year. I don't know if I would put it in that category for me, just given my personal taste. But overall, if you like planning games, say like, Lignum that Capstone also came out with, I think this is well worth your time to check out. It's a big old puzzle, and it's super tight, and you never seem to have enough money to do what you want to do, and trying to navigate your way through that sort of minefield can make for a really crunchy experience. So that's kind of my thoughts after playing, what is it, 6-7 games of Pipeline at this point. I would say super solid game. If you like heavy planning games, definitely you need to check this one out.
I'd echo almost everything Andy said there. Almost word for word, exact. I would say the same things. I feel like This has definitely got that 5-player Agricola feeling where if there's something you need, don't let it sit out there or it will be gone. That's the type of game this is, and that's the same thing true for like Agricola or a really tight worker placement game. You can't. Other players are going to take away the stuff you need if you don't get it now. So you're going to see 10 things out there that you feel like you need to have in order to put together the thing you want. You're not going to get 7 of them. That's what's going to happen in this game. They're going to go away because other players are going to want them too. So you have to figure out which ones you really need the most and go for it. And sometimes that's a pretty tough decision, and that's part of where the AP comes in. Part of the AP also comes in the fact that you're building this giant mess of pipes out of tiles.
Oh, God.
And I mean, that's a spatial reasoning thing. That's a spatial logic type of puzzle. And that is a puzzle. You have to, I mean, it will take some thinking to figure that out. Adding those two together and the other aspects of the game, trying to figure out how to balance your budget and everything. Andy's right. This is an AP heavy game, but it's a short game. It's surprisingly short. You look at it on the table and you think, there's no way this game is short. Then you play it and the time just breezes by and you're like, I played this in an hour or an hour 15 and it's done. And you don't, I mean, it doesn't take the whole, it's not one of those games that takes the whole afternoon. And that's something that's really in its favor, the amount of depth it brings for the relatively short playtime. I'm very glad I own this, and I look forward to teaching it to lots of people over the next few months. It's highly recommended.
Yeah. I think this is definitely a game that's going to shine. If you can get, I would say between 3 and 4 people who know the rules, and you can get those same 3 or 4 people together for multiple games where you're not teaching the rules each time. Yeah, you can bang this game out. Like if you're not teaching the rules, you could easily play 2 or even 3 games of this in a decent game night easily, back to back, no trouble. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very good game, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing it some more. All right, so that's our reviews. Next, we're going to transition here into our theme. Or not our theme, but our topic of being difficult themes. Now, to be clear, kind of what we're going into with on this one, when we say difficult themes, what we mean by this topic is not like a theme that's hard to make a game around, that kind of thing, but more themes that are going to make you feel possibly a little bit uncomfortable. These themes would not be something, or at least I hope to God, something you're not sitting around joking about or like, high-fiving with big smiles or yes or anything. And, we're talking about themes in games that the game's a little more of a design to make you think or feel a certain way. Not like, what some people say, like a beer and pretzels kind of game or something to just have fun with, quote unquote fun. That's what we're going to go with on tonight, kind of discussing where these kind of themes might be appropriate, what are the pitfalls as we see it of them, and whatnot, and who might enjoy these, who might not, how should you treat them, that kind of thing. So that kind of brings up what I'm thinking of is, what categorizes a difficult theme is, yeah, the Skilty Land. Yeah, that might be what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, that's kind of where I'm going with. Is there anything you would add to that, Trent, kind of what you view as a difficult theme?
No, I'd agree with that almost completely.
Okay, cool. So, kind of the first question I wrote down here to think about is, what can be useful about having games with these kind of themes? Like, why would someone want to make a game about colonialism or war or counterinsurgencies or other things like that? So I'll let you start off with that one, Trent. Why do you think, these themes in board gaming might be useful? What's to gain by exploring them?
Well, I mean, it makes you think about that particular rough point in history and like makes it more, for lack of a better word, tactile. or approachable or understandable in a way that it might not otherwise be. It's easy to think of things like colonialism in an abstract sense and maybe even understand in some level the horrors of it. But when you start focusing on it for 2 hours and seeing how the parts of it move around, which is something a board game can do really well, it can give you a new appreciation of that situation in history or in modern life, depending on what you choose, what kind of game it is. And that can increase your understanding and empathy for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of echo that, like a lot of these games that I've seen, uh, they are designed to make you really feel a certain way. They're trying to be an enjoyable game from a mechanistic standpoint, but they're trying to get you to feel something or view something differently, I think is their main goal. Um, in our chat, Tony brought up the game Train, which I can never remember the woman's name who developed this. But there's basically, as far as I understand, one copy of it, and it's almost really more of like an art project more than it is a game thing. But yeah, it's like some kind of basic logistics game, and basically the idea is how many passengers on this train can you get from point X to point Y. And after you've been playing it and you're really starting to get it and be efficient about it, it's revealed then that you're actually you're in Nazi Germany and you're transporting people to Auschwitz. Oh, thanks, Tony. Yeah, Brenda Ramiro. And then the point really of the game is at that point when that's revealed is how does that make you feel? It's kind of designed to get at the idea of, how can good people in bad situations do bad things, kind of thing. So it's really there to try to get you to understand, how people can be pulled into making what on the surface, or not really even on the surface, but what is really awful, awful things. Um, Even though, quote unquote, later they might, they see themselves as perfectly good people. They don't think of themselves as evil or anything. Um, yeah, and I think of that too. And uh, a listener brought up This Guilty Land, which I've been a big fan of, especially in this concept of dark themes, because in This Guilty Land, you're looking at the politics of slavery, not the institution of slavery itself, but the politics that allowed this to happen. And basically the idea is ultimately the political aspects of slavery was going to lose. The Civil War was going to happen. And that's kind of the thesis of this game. And it definitely did that, because the first time we played it, and that was with Trent was playing Justice, and I was playing the Forces of Oppression, which were basically the politicians from the South being, pro-slavery. And because the game is a little quirky and a little different mechanistically, for, about the first 2/3 of the game, I was really focused on trying to figure out, how you win the game, like, how you do this, how you do these mechanisms. How do I take control of the House or the Senate or affect the different regions? And then once those aspects, the mechanics of the game started sliding away as I figured things out, I at first got really excited because I was like, yeah, I'm figuring this game out. This is really awesome. And then I looked at the pictures of the cards I was using and the names of them. And I was like, I don't feel good about this. Like it really caused me to have a moment of, wait, what am I doing here? Like this is a problem. Like, no, this is not good. And I almost found myself trying to look at only the type of the card, but not actually the name of the card or the image of the card, because it was bothering me. Like it definitely made me feel uncomfortable. And in the end, I don't know if I don't think that's a bad thing. It really forced me to think about things and look at things from a new viewpoint. Um, so I think that's where they can come useful. Do you have any other examples of that, Trent, where something like that caused you to kind of view things a little differently?
You covered the big ones. I mean, I can think of lots of games. Oh, I got one, A Distant Plane.
Mm-hmm.
A Distant Plane is a coin game from GMT, and it caused me to have a very visceral response the first time I played it because it deals with the current ongoing war in Afghanistan, and part of that game is that you're one of the factions is effectively the U.S., and then three other factions are different groups in the area. And I had a friend that had been serving over there very recently, and then had come back just before I played it for the first time, and it felt very real to me. And since then, I've been really wary to play it, but I played it not too long ago using bots just to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gave me more of an appreciation of what actually was going on over there. Because, I mean, it's kind of a snapshot of several years ago more than now.
Yeah.
I would say. I don't think it's like incredibly current in terms of the situation in Afghanistan. But it gave me a better understanding of what all went on over there then. And I think that's a good example of kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and if I remember right, for even that one, there were people that were hesitant to play it who had friends and family over there who were gamers and saw what it was doing, and then they actually the veterans then encouraged their friends and family to play it because they said it was very representative of some of the difficulties they faced and really would give you an idea of what they went through. And I was reading about these veterans who were actually encouraging people to play it so that they could really see what they were getting at and how hard it was for them. And I think that's where the advantage of some of these games can be is they can give you a perspective, having not lived through or been a part of some of that situation. In fact, it kind of tangenting off what you said there, Trent, is I believe for GMT, wasn't Labyrinth, the War on Terror, like one of the first times they came up with bots? Because it was similar thing. Like you were playing either the jihadists or America, and he was asked to basically make it as a solo game as well because so many people would not want to play terrorists. Like they would be bothered by that. And I've read where people had played the terrorists and were looking at what they had to do to win, and it was making them very uncomfortable because it was some pretty dark, horrible things, and it got them to kind of see things from a different perspective there. So anything else on that? I don't know. I think we've addressed why they're useful to kind of teach you to, cause you to examine things differently in the world. Do you have anything else on that point, Trent?
No, I think we got that ground covered.
All right. So let's go to the next one, which I think is kind of, a big thing that can be an issue here and kind of get some things people in chat with us have been talking about. What are the pitfalls that designers or publishers might face for using these themes? So let you start off with that one.
Well, I mean, I think most people respect it if a particular issue is handled with a lot of care and thought and grace. I think if you do that, almost everyone will respect it and they'll end up having positive results and there won't be a lot of negative blowback. However, it's really easy to mess this kind of thing up, and when you mess it up, the blowback is tremendous and negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you make a game about colonialism and don't think about it very carefully and sensitively, as for example, GMT did recently, the blowback will be hard and negative against you and your company, and it's not the kind of thing any company or any person wants to be dealing with. You can try to be sensitive, and if you bungle it in some way that you don't happen to see because of your blind spots, but everybody has blind spots. I mean, you could be trying really hard to be sensitive and just something slips through your blind spot and you don't see it. you get torn apart for it. You have to be very careful with these kinds of things. You have to really, really, really do your homework. I I hope, and from my experience of what I've seen, is that people that tend to step into this area, for the most part, do their homework. Not always, as we learned recently with GMT. But for the most part, people that deal with this, I think of, for example, of Joel Toppin and his games that he deals with some of the issues around westward expansion and how it was handled by Native American tribes, the Navajo Wars in Comancheria. He handles that with an insane detail and care and thought and sensitivity. And because of that, those games are widely regarded, even though they're dealing with a very sticky, difficult period of time that's very sensitive and emotionally rough for some people. It works because of the care that was put in by the designer to research this and do it well. Right. So I think when you're dealing with a sensitive topic, you really, 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 really have to do your homework thoroughly. And if you don't, it'll bite you, and it will bite you bad, and you'll end up looking very bad.
Yeah, and I think, from my experience, the differences of culture in my life, and kind of what I've seen in the board game world, let's face it, board games, as when they started out, were from a pretty European-centric kind of white male culture, right? Like out of, Germany and Britain, England, those kind of places. And I think in those early days, people would just slap colonialism on a board and be like, it'll be fine. It's colonialism. We all understand that. But you're getting into a world now where, like, that's just not okay. People are way more, sensitive and caring about these kind of issues. And kind of, going to the GMT thing, when, they had a game with the theme of colonialism, and then they're like, it's a light, fun family game. Like, that doesn't sync up anymore. You're gonna cause some issues with that. The one I always think of, or one of the other famous ones, is, Puerto Rico with the colonists or whatever they have in that one. I don't remember what they call them on that one. Trent, do you?
I'm not sure.
But yeah, basically they're slaves, right? In the end. And it's just kind of thrown in there, and, it's almost, in a weird sense, like a running joke now. I try to, think in my mind, like, what would happen if Puerto Rico came out today and tried that stuff? I think they would have got nailed pretty bad for it. I don't know. Like, do you think some of this will?
I think we may have lost Andy there. I'm not sure what's going on. Andy, you there?
There we go. Is all good now?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Okay. Sorry. Like I said, I'm on my son's computer. It's not quite as beefy as mine, so I might have had a hiccup there. So let's say the question being, so we had Puerto Rico, and they had the colonists, which were basically slaves. Do you think they would have gotten away with that had that game been published like today?
I'm honestly not sure, Andy. I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm just trying to think, like, like Five Tribes, like, they got nailed pretty bad for it, as I remember too, right? Because they had like slaves as a commodity or something. They got nailed pretty hard for it, to the point that they like replaced it with something in the expansion, I believe it was.
Are you talking about Five Tribes?
Yeah.
Yeah, they replaced it with, like, I don't know, they had a different term for it, but yeah, they did not call them that anymore because they got hit pretty hard for that one.
Yeah, I just think that, like, it's like you said, if you're flippant about it, like, I don't think you can get away with that anymore. It's just not gonna fly. In today's thing, I mean, there's the few covers and stuff I've seen that I'm just like, you maybe should have thought about that a little more. So there's those kind of things. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think there's a lot of pitfalls. You can do things where you're going to be affecting people culturally, race or sex or other things. And if you treat that in a flippant manner, I think you're going to get rightly nailed. And, for better or worse, you can, it can be really rough. Like, I know you and I had issues when we were trying to maybe calm down some people, even with the GMT thing, who were basically, rather than assuming that someone was just an idiot and didn't notice this, were like, it was malicious intent. Like they obviously were trying to do this on purpose. Like it can get really rough if you screw it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, don't assume malice when ignorance is a good explanation, is a good policy to have for people and others in general.
Right.
Most people aren't trying to be malicious. Yeah, there are malicious people out there, but most people that screw up are just ordinary people who screwed up. They're not trying to be horrible people.
Yeah.
Let them, if they're going to be horrible, make them show you that they're actually being horrible. If it's very plausible and reasonable that they just made a mistake, let it be a mistake and just move on.
Yeah. Well, plus you got to consider, GMT is a pretty well established company here. They're not going to spend money making a game that ticks people off and doesn't sell copies if that's that's not their purpose. But yeah, but definitely if you're going to be using some of these more difficult themes, I think know the risk. If you don't do your due diligence, just people are going to come back on you for it. And right or wrong, that backdrop can be rough. So you really want to make sure you get it right. And there's a lot of people that do a really good job with it. So, that brings us to the next point of what steps, should a designer take, you think, to be successful with a theme that might, be more difficult or dark? What are some ways they could deal with that?
Check in with a lot of different people that are experts in the field and particularly know about the area you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
These people are going to know the potholes. They're going to be able to point out where you're stepping in them. Don't just assume that you know everything about this topic and you just throw it down and you're good to go. Check with other people. Run it by them. Make sure you're not making any gigantic mistakes. Because if you are, the crowdsource of the internet will find it and it will not go well for you.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Kind of a point related to that when you brought up Joel Toppin, like I listened to an interview of him when he was talking about how he developed Navajo Wars, and he talked about how he spent a lot of time in the American Southwest with Native American tribes, including tribal elders, and just blind play tests with members of different tribes or the Navajo tribes. Not just, hey, I have this one Native American friend and he said it was good, so it's all good. But, not only did he do his due diligence on research, he specifically met with people within the culture that was being represented and was like, am I getting this right? Am I showing the plight as the point of view of your people? Is this what you went through? Am I getting it right? Because I'm trying to get people to see, as it was for you. And I think that definitely comes out in those games. I have Navajo Wars. I have not played it. I also have Comancheria, and I've played that a few times, and that very much comes out that it's trying to get you to feel and see things from the perspective of the Native Americans represented within those games. This Guilty Land with Tom Russell, I think that game was done very well. You can feel that a lot of effort was put into it to get it right, to make you feel what you're supposed to feel, but to also understand what's going on and why. There probably has been some blowback against that game. My guess is because people had a knee-jerk reaction and didn't really look deeply into it. But that's another issue to take into account is just by making a game that involves colonialism or something like that, there are going to be people that might go after you without doing the same kind of work figuring out the game as you did figuring out the game, just because of the topic you've chosen. But yeah, I definitely think that. And someone brought up, I can't remember what this is, but there was kind of Native American cultures, and a lot of people have with that one too. And yeah, I think you need to do a lot of people, make sure that you've got your bases covered, because if you let something slip through, it's going to get seen and people are going to come back at you for it. And I think a lot of people do a really good job of it. And another thing to think about is I think the lens of time has a certain effect here. Like, there's a lot of people that don't have any issues playing war games where one side's playing the Nazis. Now, usually you're only focusing on the military aspect of the Nazis. But if you're making a game that is especially recent, I think, you want to be really careful there. There was a Kickstarter for a game. I can't remember the name of it, but it's not important. But it basically involved things involving President Trump and some other stuff. And they tried to kickstart it, and just the amount of instantaneous backlash they got, they basically just pulled their Kickstarter, and they're like, I don't think the world's right for this right now. And I think that's probably a good thing to consider with what you're doing. All right. Let's see. So, next question I had or point to talk about. That's kind of simple. Let's go with this one. What are some things as the gamer you should consider before putting a game that's going to have kind of a difficult, dark theme on the table, you think?
What? Repeat that?
Okay, so let's say as the gamer, right? So if I have This Guilty Land or colonialism, what are things I should think about before I suggest this to play at a game night?
In general, I wouldn't play them at a public game night. If you have, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't, because you end up having to address You may end up having to address issues at one that you just don't want to deal with at a public game night. You want to kind of keep your themes fairly innocuous. This is a game I would play with friends that I knew well and trusted, and play them kind of at my home or somewhere else, because they're just not themes that I think work well in a public environment. They're just like, for example, there's conversations that you generally just don't bust out at a public game night, because they're not going to go well they don't go well in mixed company. It's not that there's anything wrong with the presentation or the ideas that you're talking about. It's just that it's not a polite thing to do in mixed company. And that's the same thing with a lot of the games we're talking about. I just wouldn't bring them out at a game night.
Yeah. Probably not I would agree with that. I think as a public game night, you might be risking it. If you have a certain set number of people you game with, I think, you guys can figure out who among you is going to be okay or not okay with it. But I think also, even if you have just a personal group, and we're not talking about talking about just a public game night, but let's say, you're the same 4 or 5 people that get together. I think you need to think about, is everybody ready for that? If someone's had a really awful day at work or something and they're already depressed, playing colonialism might not be the best idea on that night.
No, probably not.
Yeah. So not only, do you have to take into account who they are, I think you got to take into account, is everybody up for and ready for a game that is going to be, it's going to be an experience, but maybe, it's not a comfortable experience. I think this is where, in a lot of ways, I mean, Euro games can, the general Euro games can be very popular because, farming is not going to be offensive, or most people, or, the Renaissance, I guess. I don't know. That's, there might be a bother somewhere,
But I
somebody.
mean,
But,
most of them don't address the harsher aspects of the Renaissance.
right.
I mean, it doesn't bring up like these games don't address some of the issues that could really make someone uncomfortable with the Renaissance. They focus on the art and things like that most people can appreciate in a positive way, even if it's not focusing on the sensitive issues. We're talking about games that focus on the sensitive issues.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot that do that, and yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. And I guess the one thing I find interesting is that we're at a place in the hobby where you can kind of get away with it, and that gaming in general has matured. I think it is something that's not just like, oh, let's sit around and play a game and have a lark. Like, like games are being looked at in serious ways, as well as just, quote unquote fun. Let's get around, laugh, and, have a beer and play a game together. They're being looked at now as teaching tools, as experiences, and things along those lines. And, I kind of did some research on these kind of things. Um, you know, just be careful with who you're going to play them with, and that you're finding one where people really did put some work into it and did do their due diligence and really tried to represent things in a way that is for the betterment of people who play it. And ultimately, if any of these war game themes or something you see, if you find them troubling, I guess go take a look at some of the Nordic RPGs and you won't feel so like these are shocking anymore. I was reading about some of those and I was like, oh my gosh. Because apparently with some of them, like they have to have like, what amounts to like a talkback section after the role-playing game to make people pull out of the characters they were playing and not feel horrible about it. So, there's a lot of weird, interesting stuff out there. But I think, yeah, people just need to make sure that they are putting a lot of care not only into their games, but people who are going to show them to others. They're putting a lot of care into making sure those experiences will be comfortable, or it, will be uncomfortable in the right ways and not the wrong ways. So that's kind of, how I feel about these games. I've gotten to the point where I do like having them around because I do like to be challenged on various levels. And I found that by thinking about some games like this, it kind of makes me a more sensitive person to issues, and hopefully allows me to interact with people in a better way. So those are kind of my final thoughts. Trent, you have any final thoughts to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, as long as you're careful with who you're playing with, games that address difficult topics can be really valuable experience for you and the people you're playing with. It can really help you learn more about particular situations and issues in history and understand them a lot better. And that's only a net positive.
Right. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and finish up tonight with hyping some games. So these are games we are looking forward to playing. Thanks, Trent. You went first on the reviews. I'll go ahead and get this out of the way. So I'm gonna hype a game with maybe a difficulty. I don't know. Probably not too horrible. So PAX Pamir Second Edition. Yes, I'm hyping this 2 weeks in a row. I just got my copy on Tuesday. Everything is sorted, sleeved, and ready. And oh my God, this might be the most beautiful production of a game I have ever seen, bar none. Eagle Griffin only wishes it was this good. But I mean, to the point of like when you open the box and you like flip the lid around, it's like a freaking art painting on that thing. It's crazy. I did get the metal coins, which all look like these nice stamped metal coins with intricate designs for that time period. The resin blocks is really good. I don't know. The production is off the walls, but looking now at the rules and having read them, normally the phrase streamlined like sends a shiver up my spine and causes me to run away from a project. Once again, I should stop ever doubting Cole when it comes to game design, period. But I think the changes that were made for PAX Pamir Second Edition, from what I can read on the rules, were all for the better in terms of making a PAX game that's fairly accessible to people, that you can actually play in a game night. And it can still be opaque, but people might have a vague idea of what they need to do and track information a little bit better. I managed to read the bot rules, or the AI rules for the solo play. They actually have the solo players designed to work with one or two people. So you can actually, if you're playing 2-player primarily, you can kind of get that third player in. So it's not quite so zero sum. That was really interesting. I don't know. I just really want to play this game badly. So that's my hype for PAX Pamir Second Edition. Yeah, that's there's games coming out later that are on my radar, but for right now, like, that's got my laser focus attention, is this game. I've read the rules, I'm looking at components, thinking about how I'm going to teach it, and I just want to get this dang game on the table with people. All right, Trent, what you hyping tonight?
I'm just going to talk about Seasons of Ennis, which is actually released today. Seasons of Ennis is the first expansion for the board game Ennis, which is a really clever, I would describe it as area control game, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's also kind of a card drafting, hand management game at the same time. Seasons of Ennis is one of those nice expansions. It's mostly just a more of expansion, which is often what I like in games like this. It just gives you more territories in your territory pile and a few other odds and ends. You can play with it up to 5. I don't know that I ever would. I kind of think Ennis is really good at 4. Maybe it'll work well at 5. I'll sure try it. But this is just more of a game if you like that game. It doesn't radically change the game. And honestly, I prefer that in most expansions, especially when I already like the base game. Just give me more of what I like, more options, and we're good to go. And that's what this is for Ennis.
And hopefully not 3-hour sessions.
Yes.
Anyway, awesome. So that's games we're looking forward to playing here in the near future or coming out soon. So thank you all for joining us on a little bit heavier topic on the good, the bored, and the ugly. Not a cute fun one this time. We'll try to kick in one of those here in the near future. But hopefully you got something out of this. I know there's been a lot of discussion in our chat tonight, and a lot of really good ideas put forth respectfully and with thought, and that's kind of what this topic was all about. If you want to talk to us further, check out our guild on Board Game Geek, number 2173. You can also tweet us at goodboardugly. at Gaming Trent, and me personally at Dennison Science. You also can go to our Facebook page, The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Night, everyone, and we will see you again next week for some more games and some topics in the board game industry. Good night.